Sean Miller, and we're here with another Whiteboard Wednesday. I apologize for those of you who follow along. I'm going to use the word religiously every week, getting about an hour late start on this one, starting at 4 instead of 3. I apologize. Tons and tons of projects. I was just involved in a big presentation to get more students into the school and all that, and days are just flying by. So once this is done, I got to prep for instructor training later. All kinds of things, right? So anyway, this is basically a part 2 from last episode, right? So if you didn't get a chance to watch the episode on Kata versus Waza, right, kind of a sparring part 1, then you're going to want to take a look at that as well. You don't need to watch that before you get to this one. Maybe helpful, maybe not, whatever. But I want to jump into things, and so what I really want to look at today. I've been in martial arts for a long, long time. I started my martial arts journey in 1975. So I don't know where some of you guys were in 1975, but I was in what was then called junior high school, right? There was a karate club and all that kind of cool stuff, right? So I've been around the block a couple of times, been through a bunch of different martial arts. This past Kuden podcast on Monday, I discussed not only that, little highlights and stuff, but how and why I chose this is my primary kind of thing, right? But one of those things that I noticed, and I talked about during that last episode, was what I think is wrong or kind of a miss, right? Make sure my thing here doesn't shut down on me. Anyway, make sure to take a look at why I think sparring is not done very well, right? Before I jump into that, though, let me ask you a question, right? I don't know if you drive or not, but if you do, you can think about this from a personal standpoint, but also if you're a parent or a family member or whatever, and you've taught someone else to drive, okay? So here's the question, right? Did you kind of take them through, I don't know, maybe you use this word, maybe not, right? But different phases or whatever, right? Where they could start from kind of a safe place and then move them progressively forward, teaching them different skills and all that, until they could finally move out onto major roads, highways, or whatever. And I don't care if, you took them onto some back road that people barely use at all, and that was the safe area, or if you did like I did, and I started my kids off in a parking lot or something like that. Or did you toss them into the driver's seat, throw them the keys, and go, there you go, let's see what you can do, okay? I'm betting that the rare person is going to say, oh, yeah, I just tossed it to my kid and let him go. And I got insurance, what the hell, because we know that most of us know that there's going to be damages, people could get hurt, or at the very least, the person who's trying to learn how to drive could get so freaked out that they just go, you know what, screw it. I'm going to be a passenger the rest of my life. Yeah, nope, not going to do it. Okay. So, and this is generally, the what we might call the on-the-job training kind of thing, or the hands-on approach to teaching people how to do things in lots of areas, right? Could be where you work and the job you learned or whatever, right? But then why is that different in the martial arts? Why do we bring somebody who's fairly new out onto the mat, toss some rubber foam training gear or whatever, and go, have at it, dude. Good luck. And I know we probably don't say those words, right? But I see some teachers that are pretty asinine when it comes to it, right? I mean, if they're not beating up on the student, then they're tossing them out there and letting some other black belt do it or whatever, right? Which is just freaking stupid, right? We're supposed to be teaching this person how to integrate self-defense, survival, fight skills, whatever, into their system so that they can use a strategic, tactically sound method that's been passed down, right, to save their lives. And the first thing we're going to do is scare the shit out of them, okay? Probably not a good idea, right? So I'm going to look at 2 things today. And I got to zip through because we have classes starting. Like I said, my schedule is really compressed today. So first thing is problematic areas, right? Why I think the typical approach, right, is wrong, right? And then we're going to take a look at this framework that we use, which actually has to borrow from something that's it's a subject of another Whiteboard Wednesday. So you'll start to see that as these things happen and these lessons are put out, they're not just, while they are standalone lessons, right? but they're integrated, right? They're like jigsaw puzzle pieces, or one feeds another, one is dependent on another, that kind of thing. Just like the systems in my dojo, right? I just don't open the door and let people come in and do whatever, right? There are these 7 areas of management that we have. Each one, right, has its own little systems to handle a certain corner of the dojo. And then each system is responsible for feeding certain types of information or things, whether it's new students or whatever, right, into other systems. And those systems are dependent, right, on these other things, just like our techniques are dependent on kamae and the striking skills and all those, and so that they're right, certain mindsets and all that, right? Not just, can I learn the monkey moves and feel great about myself and then show off to other people so they think I'm like all that in a bag of chips, right? So anyway, let's start with what the hell's wrong with things kind of thing, right? I'm going to start with something that's pretty significant, right? The first thing is we don't think that way. Right? We don't think or process information. If I do that, we don't think and we don't process things, most of us, in the way that most sparring is done in most schools, right? And that goes doubly for the ground and pound schools, where that's the entire learning process, right? Because while you can take somebody and throw them into the deep end of the pool, right, to teach them how to swim, you better be prepared to frickin' jump in after them. And then usually what ends up happening is there's these tips and hints and all that kind of stuff. But what you're really doing is forcing the other person to reinvent the wheel. You're forcing them to learn, right? Go through the learning process while they're trying to survive. Okay, I'm going to get to that piece in a minute, but we don't think this way, right? The way that most people are taught things, right, and the way we as human beings respond to things actually are at odds with each other, right? They happen from completely different directions, right? So the learning curve, right, tends to work in I learned something, right? And then I do it, right? I apply it, whatever, whether it's a lab or something in school and I have to do homework or whatever, right? And then I have a feeling about it, okay? And it can happen very, very quickly. It can happen over time. Sometimes the feeling is neutral, right? Don't really care. The feelings I'm talking about is not like happy, sad, ecstatic, lustful, that kind of stuff, right? The feelings that I'm talking about, and this is taught in our Mikyo training, right? These are really base level feelings, right? So what you really have is attraction, repulsion, kind of neutral, right? I don't feel one way or the other. It just is what it is, right? What people often confuse, though, when they're doing a lot of this training is that they think that we're supposed to get to this, everything's neutral. Yeah, okay? There's no life in that, right? We can pass through that phase so that we can intellectually figure out what's a good option, what's not a good option, or whatever, right? But anyway, so this is the learning curve, right? We learn it, we do it, and then we have some kind of feeling about it, right? I like it, I don't like it, whatever, right? The problem, and this is a big problem across the whole self-defense world, whether it's martial arts-based self-defense or whatever system somebody came up with, right, is that it misses the operational thing, right? Because the way we operate as a human being is typically the opposite, right? Or near the opposite, right? It moves in the opposite direction, right? Again, we have a feeling about the thing that's happening. Okay. And it could cause anxiety or anything like that, which is a negative, repulsive kind of thing, right? Okay. Then, right, based on what we think we know about it, right? So this is mind over here, right? Mind, and then this is body, right? And this is, we call it heart, spirit, whatever, right? Okay. The opposite direction, right? We have a feeling about something based on what we think we know about the situation or the options that we have for that thing. Then we go into action. So heart, mind, right? Body. It's completely the opposite, right? So when we're learning these things, we need to take these things into consideration because this stuff is operating, whether we want to believe it, whether we think it works, it doesn't matter if we want to believe it or not. Okay. It's kind of like gravity, right? The universe couldn't care less if you believe that gravity is real or not. right? Because if you slip or your balance isn't right or whatever, the effective gravity is you get to meet the ground really, really quickly, right? Where you get to look like a dork because you're bouncing around trying to not fall down, right? So, but there's already this problem, right? Where we don't think, right? We don't process things the way people would like that to happen, right? Now, are there some people that can learn this way? Absolutely. There are some people that have learned to swim by somebody grabbing them by the frickin' shorts and throwing them into the pond, right? But you also run the risk of that person drowning too. Okay, so right, only the most intuitive people really get that kind of thing, and herein lies a problem. And I talked about this, I think, in a previous episode, where there's three different types of teachers or whatever, and that's the way we break it down into our dojo, or not into our dojo, but in our dojo, right? Teacher, instructor, coach. Okay. Most people, if they're operating based on the toss them into the freaking ring, and then whoever's intuitive enough to figure it out, they're going to toss some hints and tips to that person so they can get better. That's a coach. Okay. The coach doesn't have to be able to do anything. They just have to be able to think strategically, tactically, and all that kind of stuff so they can toss some hints and tips out. But really, the student's trying to figure it out for themselves. It's just trial and error, right? Well, that's all great as long as you got time, right? But if we're going to do trial and error with that, then why bother learning any techniques at all? Right? That's kind of the mindset of the Waza guys, right? The MMA and whatnot, right? You can't like set up like structure and stuff because that's not how a fight works. No, but the number of people that start at an MMA school and quit and leave is staggering because most people can't learn that way. Right? Most people don't want to learn that way. And most people don't want to bang into their anxiety feelings of, holy shit, I don't know anything. And you expect me to get in there and fight with this guy and then be okay. Right? So there's a problem. Right? Not only do we not think that way, right? But there's a scientific basis behind that. Okay. This is a subconscious, unconscious kind of thing, right? So I don't want to write this one out. Survival. We'll just it runs contrary to our default survival mechanism. Okay, what I mean by that is if you throw somebody into sparring too soon, and what everybody knows what I mean by sparring, we're both going at it. It's not structured. It's not this framework kind of thing that we use. It's just we're just going to toss them in there. We're going to suit them up with foam or not, and they're going to go at it with like everybody else, right? The problem is that if they don't know any better or the new skills that they've learned, right? If they don't know them yet, remember there's a difference between learning something, knowing something, and having wisdom or enlightened mindset where you can actually apply that kind of thing in different situations under pressure and all that, right? So they've learned it, but it's not integrated into muscle memory yet, and it's not in subconscious storehouse. What ends up happening is when they get put under pressure, they do what they've always done because the survival mechanism just throws out what's already in there, right? That means whatever they've seen in TVs and movies or just the caveman kind of whatever, right? Okay. So if I'm to me, this is why most people when they're sparring, they don't look anything like the art that they're supposed to be learning, right? They're just people throwing punches, they're throwing kicks, and they're having little flashes of, oh, don't forget this one or don't forget that one or whatever. But there's no tactical or strategic thinking to it, right? Because it runs contrary to the survival mechanism. If the techniques aren't in to muscle memory, my teacher used to say, if you don't own them, right? Own them. Not you have learned them. If you don't own them, they're not going to come out when you need it, right? So what ends up happening is, again, survival mechanism kicks in, fight, flight, or freeze, a whole bunch of other things. The amygdala fires, the hypothalamus fires, all kinds of crap goes on. And what ends up coming flooding out of subconscious storehouse is what's already in there. Not what you've learned, what you've done enough to the point where you want to freaking throw up because you've done it so much, you're bored with it, but you do it more to make sure that you can not only get it right. Here's the important thing. Most people stop training with a technique or a skill when they get something right. Okay. That's not right. Okay. If you really want to make sure that you have something, you train until you can't get it wrong. right? Stop training until you get something right, right? Everybody can do that, right? I've had some students that we with this joke in the dojo, right, where somebody's having a problem with the technique, and all of a sudden they get it right, and they go, success, I can go home now. I got it right, right? That's kind of a little bit of a joke, but when I do something where I can't get it wrong, like tying my shoes, if I'm talking to somebody and having a conversation, or I'm maybe yelling at my kids when they were young, or they were going to do something that was dangerous or whatever, right? I'm tying my shoes. My fingers still do the shoe tying and whatnot. I don't have to be, you guys need to knock it off. I can't concentrate, right? That's no, right? We're not training until we get something right. We're training until we can't get it wrong. When something is in here, right? And our litmus test in the dojo is you can do something under pressure at least 8 out of 10 times at a given speed before you're allowed to bump it up to the next speed, right? 8 out of 10 times, right? Before, well, like without thinking about it. If I start calling come my names and whatnot, you can go to them without having to think about them or anything like that. And we don't have to make corrections and whatnot. Then we can start sparring with come on, right? But again, this is contrary to the survival mechanism. I understand what people's belief systems are, but if those belief systems run contrary with the way we're wired or with natural laws, just freaking swimming upstream, okay? So again, why does conventional sparring, why do I think it doesn't work as well as it does? The people that are doing it they're naturally intuitive, or they're too tenacious to not give up or whatever, right? Another reason it doesn't work, right, which feeds right back into this survival mechanism, is to most people, it's freaking scary. Okay? They came into the dojo to learn how to not get punched in the face, not get suited up in foam, and then duke it out with somebody where they're hoping that they get more shots in and get points or whatever before he gets the shots in, or getting tackled to the ground or whatever, right? What the hell, right? Well, it's just something you got to do and got to get used to it. I agree. But when in the training paradigm, when within the framework, is that a good idea? Okay. So there's all kinds of things in here. I could list a whole bunch of things, but we're going to jump to something else, right? So, but the big thing with this, the big takeaway that I want you to have, most important reason that I think that the way sparring is typically done, where a new guy comes in, he's only been in class 2 or 3 times, maybe it's the first freaking class, right? And he gets suited up and thrown out there because like it's something we do, man. Like here's the kata stuff, and here's the self-defense stuff, and now we're going to get out there and do the sparring stuff, right? I think the reason why most people look like shit, right? And it's not that they don't win fights. It's not that they don't win competitions or whatever. But you know what? If everybody's doing the same thing, you only need to be that much better than them or luck out, right? What do they say? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Okay? So, but this is the big thing. Okay? If we're supposed to be integrating the skills, and I talked about this last episode, so this is where you'll want to make a note, go back and watch that thing, right? If we're trying to learn something, a new system, a style, or whatever that's supposed to be, it's been passed down for decades, right? Here we are doing this thing, right? If that's the way we're training to fight, then why don't people look like that when they're sparring? Why does it look, at best, ish? Karate-ish, jiu-jitsu-ish, right? Well, because it's a fight, dude. Yeah, but it's supposed to be more scientific. It's supposed to be smarter, not harder. Come on, right? So anyway, right, this is the big thing. The big thing is if we toss somebody into the ring too soon, right, their survival mechanism kicks in and their subconscious mind just throws out what they've always been doing, okay? So it's either going to take much, much longer for them to get there, or they're going to have to luck out and just be naturally intuitive, right, and figure things out, or they're going to have to do what everybody else does and make up their own shit, right, or they're going to quit. Okay. Then, of course, the teacher's going to be like, well, they just weren't committed enough. No, screw you. You're a dumbass teacher. Okay. Yeah, but that's the way I was taught. Not my fault. Who said that your teacher knew how to teach? Just because you know skills doesn't mean that you know how to teach. Right. That's a whole other topic. Right. So anyway, all right. To cover our 5-phase framework for sparring, it's going to be important that we look at one other 5-phase thing just very, very quickly. There's whole videos on these things, right? I think the very first one I did was on the grappling way that this would happen. I have another one coming up where we're doing the striking one. But we have this framework that kind of got developed when I was working with one of my first teachers in this art, right? Now we just effectively or affectionately call it the 5 Ds, right? 5 Ds of effective. There's a freaking keyword, right? Effective self-defense. I would also add efficient, right? Scientific, right? That's why we call this enlightened self-protection and not just monkey foo or whatever, right? So 5 Ds, right? Okay. And in different videos, I'm gonna describe these things differently because some frameworks work well for other people, some others work better, but it's the exact same thing. So we've got these 5 Ds, right? First one is discern, right? I'm paying attention to what he's doing, how he's moving, that kind of stuff, how he's, what dressed in our environment, my feelings, right? Not my feelings like, oh, dude, I feel like shit today. No, I'm talking about like what this specific attacker makes me feel like. Okay, do I feel like I need to intercept him first? Now, if you have to do that all the time, then you're a what do you call that? A one-hit pony, right? One of my instructors just came in. John, what do we call that? A one-hit wonder. That's it. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, awesome. Appreciate it. All right. So discern. But what I'm doing is I'm paying attention to these variables and also the way he's moving to come in, which requires some research in different types of martial and fight styles and all that kind of stuff. So I can read somebody. It's an assessment skill, right? Discern. Okay. The next one is defend. This is not doing your damn move, right? What this is neutralizing the force of his attack or the effectiveness of his attack. If he's throwing a punch or whatever, and I'm shifting back at an angle, making him miss, right? I just made his attack moot, okay? What I did was prevented him from doing what he intended to do with that particular attack, right? The next one is disrupt, right? I'm going to unbalance him. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, right? Okay. In some way, the more the better, right? What I want to do is make sure that I've broken his balance. What is this? What this is creating a situation where he can't continue on with the same logic or the same style or the same preferences, right? His body's now fighting itself. It's fighting gravity. It's doing anything but fighting me, right? And that creates openings. That creates stall moments that I can take advantage of, right? And then I can deliver, right? Not the beef, not the chicken, but deliver, right? So it's my attempt at humor, right? Hopefully you're laughing. Anyway, right? But I'm going to deliver. That's when I do my cool move, right? Not rushing it up here. And then whether I knock him back or down or whatever, I'm discerning, right? Is he down and out? Is he down scrambling to get up and run away? Is he picking himself back up and coming back in? Is he pulling a weapon? Did he just yell for a friend to come and help? Whatever. So if he's down and out, then that's the end of our framework. If he's coming back in, or he and a friend or whatever's coming back in, that becomes number one for the next cycle, right? And again, these are phases. So what's important to understand is that students have to be good, not just knowledgeable, not just memorize this, right? Memorize this just like you memorize the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever the thing is for your country or whatever, right? Pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay. Now I'm saying that the way most people say it because there's no heart, there's no anything behind it, right? It's just like I gotta say it, so just whatever, right? There's no passion to it. There's whatever, right? I can do this too. Discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Fantastic. Just because I know 5 words in a given order doesn't mean I know how to apply those things under pressure against somebody who's trying to beat, break, or kill me. Aha. This is where sparring comes in, right? Because this gets overlaid over our physical techniques, our kata, so we can understand what is each move doing. And sometimes a given move is doing more than one thing at a time, right? Black belt moves, people always want to do the black belt stuff and stuff Hatsumi Sensei was doing because, well, it looks easier. Yeah, well, that's because we're doing freaking 3 or 4 damn things at one time, and it just looks like, well, why can't I do that? Well, because you haven't covered these. My one move covers those things all at the same time, right? So what's important, and what I thought was important enough, because I want people to not just learn the Budo Taijutsu, Ninpo Taijutsu, whatever you want to call them, right? The self-defense techniques, the moves that have been passed down, and then end up sparring like everybody else. Shit, man, if you fight like everybody else, You're taking your chances. It's like playing the lottery, right? Because if you fight like everybody else, then everybody else that you fight knows what you're going to do. They've seen those same moves. You're punching the same way, you're kicking the same way. Even if you vary it a little bit, you can only do that little trick once or twice before you're screwed. Okay? So what's important is that we do it completely differently, right? And you should come out of the process, the training process, using that which you've learned the way you learned it. Okay. Now you may end up like, we're not moving around like this all the time, with this all the time. We're moving around in Shizen Tai. But when I deliver a counter strike or I receive something, right, for a quick half second, quarter second, I'm in that command and I'm right back out of it, which is what most people miss. What they miss is that the master teachers and all that, or the Daishihan, when we're moving around and it looks like we're just moving around in Shizen, right? We're covering distance, profile to the attacker. They can't get at us even if it looks like we're open, all that kind of stuff, because we've integrated the principles and concepts. We're not just bouncing around and looking like 2 6-year-olds in a freaking sandbox slap fighting, right? So the framework, the 5-phase framework that I have, that we're actually doing this Friday during our Friday virtual class, right? I take people through it really, really quickly because we only have like 60 to 90 minutes to get through it, right? So the 5 phases, now they don't match these exactly, okay? I mentioned this last week that we learned Kamae first and Kamae evasion first, and then once you're able to go to Kamae and you don't have to think about it, your Kamae are pretty decent, right? You're not thinking about where your foot goes, your hand goes, or whatever, right? Then we bring in sparring, but it's like a one-step kind of thing where you're going to avoid with Kamae whatever he wants to throw at you, and he's now being tricky about it, right? It's not a static start. It's more fight-like, more fluid. Now, we're going to start very, very slowly, and when you can do that speed 8 out of 10 times correctly, then we're going to bump up the speed. You're going to bump up the speed. I want students to at least get to 80% full speed before we're moving on to working the next phase, okay? So the way this works is phase 1 is Kamae evasion without losing the benefits of Kamae, right? So if I'm supposed to avoid and be in a position that makes his next move harder, this part right in here, right? My first thing is being able to go to Kamae and not Kamae-ish, right? If I'm going to Kamae like this, right, I avoided the shot, but where's the protection for the next thing, right? So it's not just about bouncing around. So the first one is Kamae evasion. Kamae evasion is developing the mindset where I'm paying attention to how he's coming in, being able to recognize where there's space and where space is diminishing, right? And being able to move into that so I can make his attack moot. I'm making him waste a shot, right? That's the first one, okay? We're going to do that again until we're 80% on at 80% full speed, okay? Then what? Okay. Then, based on the way our stuff works, right, you start to break balance. You start to create opportunities, right? Those kind of things. You start to try to create openings, those kind of things, right? So that's where our counter strikes come in, right? So Kamae evasion with a counter strike, right? I don't care if it's this Gyokoryu swatting counter strike or this big circular kind of thing, or we're doing Kenkudaki where we're shifting and punching it to create an opening, right? What we start doing then is we're not just making his technique moot, right? We're starting to disrupt, okay? Now, there's a lot that goes into this, okay? Everybody thinks that they can just piece it together, but just like here was a mindset, right? I'm not panicking and just automatically moving when he moves, right? I'm watching how the thing's coming in. I'm trying to identify the angle of the attack. Not left brain, this is by feel, right? You can't think that fast at full speed, right? And then I'm feeling where the space is in the room, right? Where space is diminishing. I want to stay away from that. Where space is opening up, I want to move into that kind of space while keeping myself covered, right? So these mindsets are being created. Same thing here, right? When he throws a punch, in the beginning, what people want to do is they want to move and they want to keep swatting at that arm because they think that that's what we're doing. We're doing Kamae evasion with a counter strike. But Kamae evasion with a counter strike it requires that you know whether or not you actually can make that counter strike work in that moment, not assume. You can actually land it, or things are going too fast and you're going to miss your opportunity. And if I try to deliver it, I'm going to miss. Now I'm busy missing. He's going to do shit to me. So the cool thing about this framework is it works. That's the good news. Bad news is it works for whoever's in control of it. Okay. So just like I can be making him miss a shot, right? If I throw one that was a bad idea and I miss, he didn't make me miss, but I'm just a dumbass. And I threw this thing because I think I have to do it all the time, right? As their one-hit wonder again, right? Then, okay, so I need to develop not only the ability to avoid, stay in come ISO unprotected, and engage that incoming limb, arm, leg, temple, whatever, right? But I also have to know whether or not I have a shot, or I'm going to be waiting for the next one, right, to go, right? Which is why we teach this Senundo linear repetition drill, where you're moving from kamae to kamae to kamae without losing the benefits and cover and all that kind of stuff of kamae, and getting really, really good at that, because you're getting really good at him not being able to hit you, right? So the next thing, right? So now kamae evasion with or without a counter strike, right? So if it's without a counter strike, I'm still up here. If I was able to deliver the counter strike, the discerning mind is, did it create the opening I need? Can I move in, right? If I can move in, then I can get this counter strike in. So phase 3 is kamae evasion with or without the counter strike and counter attack. Not the technique yet. The counter attack would be, I move out of the way, I hit that arm, create that little bit of an opening, and I move in and jam him in the ribs or something like that. That stalls the next thing. It folds the body, stalls the next attack. So what I tell you about disrupt, it's to keep them from being able to going on with their same, with their favorite thing or their logic or their preferences or whatever, right? I create a stall. I create a problem where they're not fighting me, they're fighting themselves. Their body's locked down on itself. They're fighting gravity, all that kind of stuff, right? They're stumbling, whatever it is. Okay. So, but I have to know when I deliver this one, is there an opening, right? So all the way through here, the mindset, the strategic and tactical mindset, the soft skills, not the monkey moves, the soft skills are being developed, right? Because I may get out of the way of one, the next one he throws in here, I do a counter strike, but it doesn't open anything up. I realize, oh crap, he's locked down pretty good. So that counter strike's not going to work, right? But I got out of the way. Next one's going to come. I'm still in phase 1 too, right? Because I'm still in staying away. It's not until I can get this counter strike and start to open things up, right, where I'm breaking his balance, that I can actually move in to exacerbate the problem. I can make it bigger, okay? And then, you know, we're already in there with the counterattack. So it's going to break his balance more. We might be able to jump on and do a mushadori. We might be able to do a throw, whatever, right? Fight's on. Now we're delivering our stuff because he's off, right? It's not a freaking slugfest, right? That's what most sparring looks like to me. It's just a freaking slugfest. Like I said, 2 6-year-olds in a sandbox stop fighting, right? So we want to be paying attention here, right? So what then is phase 4, right? Is that where we're dropping all the way down here to deliver? No. Because if we get this, we get the phase 3 in our framework, we're all the way down here, right? It's all the way down here, okay? So phase 4, we take some time off. Not time off from sparring, time off from the next step logical stuff, because you can run this freaking forever, right? As long as he's not fighting you, you can keep on doing whatever you're doing, right? Okay? So what we do with this, because the goal is being able to use Nimpo Taijutsu in a self-defense situation and not ish, right? We're going to back up to kamae evasion, but we're going to do, number 1, kamae evasion, no hands. Not even out here to cover. Most of my students, we either, if they can't reach back and grab a hold of their belt and keep their hands there, what do, John? Tie their hands behind their back, okay? Because I want to make sure that while they were moving through this, they didn't fall prey to panic, try to swat at things to move, because they're so This is so imperative. I gotta get the counter strike. I gotta get the counter strike, that they forget to move first. Making him miss is the priority, not getting my shot in place. Okay, unless John says it's wrong, in which case then he can come and do the next episode. Right. So anyway, right. So no-handed, right? So now I've got to use this, right, to move, to avoid, to shift. So I'm back to making him waste a shot. And again, as we're moving through all this, they can do whatever they want. Okay. And with every single one of these, right, 80% accuracy, right? We're hitting our kamae, we're getting the counter strike or not option, right? Decision, right? 8 out of 10 times. We're getting the counter strike to counter attack, knowing whether we have it or not, right? 8 out of 10 times. Working that up to 80% full speed, right? We're training to survive a real situation, not do the next demonstration at the fair in the park. Okay? So no hands, okay? That makes sure that it's body. 90% of what I'm doing is body, and now my limbs are truly used for what they're supposed to be used for, right? Countering, creating opportunities, taking advantage of opportunities, those kind of things, right? My arms are free, so I can catch a mushadori, I can catch a ganseki, whatever, okay? And then phase 5, okay? I'm just going to write the word sparring, okay? Because that's when we look, I'm going to say we look like everybody else, but there's this give and take back and forth between me and my partner and all that. So we're going to slow this way, way back down again. And we do a bunch of drills with this, right? We have one that looks like, if you live in the States or know what this is like, we have something called flag football, right? Or it's like flag football. Flag football is a safe form of football, right? American football that that kids will play in, elementary school, middle school, or whatever. And they have safety equipment on, but they have this harness on, and it has these tabs that stick off of it, flags, right? They're just like these strips. Right? So I made some out of old belts. Okay. So in flag football, these things, one be hanging here, whatever. And then in the foray, the defenders, instead of tackling you, what they're supposed to be doing is pulling a flag. And if they pull one, then you would have been tackled at that point. So it's just a safe form, right? Well, me and a bunch of my friends a bunch of years ago borrowed this idea. Okay. So we put the foam gear on, right? We've got hand guards, we've got head, chest, that kind of thing, right? And then one of these hangs off the belt because that's a gut groin area, right? One hangs off the lower back. Not like an attack to the spine or the kidneys to change your day, okay? One, we have 5 of these. One goes into each of the gloves. So one is going to stick out here because your hands could be attacked, right? That kind of thing. Other hand. And then one goes in the helmet and hangs right about brow level, okay? You get the idea, right? So now, again, with this game, right, both people are set up. One has one color tab, maybe another one has orange or whatever, right? And then the way it works is now they get out and start to work some of this sparring, but now what they're trying to do is the same stuff they've been learning all along. Instead of trading shots, and the new guys will get out and forget all this stuff, and they'll start just trying to grab flags. And the ones who are figuring it out and remembering, avoid in kamae, expose his targets, close yours. So when he's busy wasting a shot, I shift to kamae and snag the flag off his glove. Comes in again. I might move to kamae, but instead of popping him in the temple, I grab that one off the helmet. So the way it works is just a game-like, right? The first person to pull 2 flags off their partner wins that round, right? Again, it's safe, but it keeps moving him in and allows them to make mistakes for going after these things without, having to take tomorrow off work, right? But the whole idea is learning to strategically do the same stuff your kata have been teaching the entire time instead of it turning into some freaking slugfest, right? So we've got different things like this, right? And there's drills that we do all the way through here. Last week, Friday, we did the circle of confidence is what I call it, where your partner gets to move around, kind of be tricky and come in with whatever they want to do. And then as they come in, right, you need to shift to kamae so that they miss, right? And you're ready for the next thing, right? So here's this framework, right? So very first thing, very first thing in sparring, right? After the person has gotten the kami into their system, right? Where they can do it 8 out of 10 times correctly without thinking about it. Now we can start applying pressure, right? So now my partner starts getting tricky and coming in on me, right? And I have to, move to a kami and try to figure this kind of thing out, right? So again, I want to work through that. Then what'll happen is the more I do this and the more my brain gets used to that, right? Just like learning how to catch a ball, right? In the beginning, right? But we get used to this freaking rock being thrown at us, and you put a glove out, catch it, throw it back at somebody else, right? You get desensitized to it, right? So the more this happens, the more part of my brain starts to recognize that there's a target that I can tag, okay? So when that happens, now we can gradually move to this, because now my brain's not so focused on the thing that's coming in. I'm avoiding that, and my brain's paying attention to openings now. It's paying attention to other things. Same thing, right? So we're training the brain, right, at the same time, well, right behind the body, so it makes good choices. And what comes out of subconscious storehouse is the stuff that we've been training and putting in, right? We've skipped. We're not running contrary to the survival mechanism in the brain. We're actually using it. Okay. And the reality is that under pressure, the subconscious mind will throw out what's in there as normal. Okay. So what I need to do with my training is replace the old normal with what I want to be coming out when I'm under pressure and not thinking clearly. Okay. All right. So again, take a look at this. If you have any questions, you can always post a comment or something like that. And if you want to do the deep dive that we're doing this Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, during our master's class, I'm going to have people going through these things, and we're going to be taking a look at it from this sparring kind of context. But again, we're not just jumping on each other. In 60 to 90 minutes, we're going to do a crash course of trying to get through these. And what you're going to see if you're virtual and watching things and working with yourself, you're going to see that certain students will hit a ceiling, right? Where they'd like to be able to do the rest of it, but the brain's just not helping, right? So we're going to have them slow way down so that they can move through it, right? And get an idea of the training at that level, but they're not going to be able to fake it, right? You can't, this is not something you can fake it till you make it. That's what most people do, right? You learn some moves, and then you learn some punches, and you learn some kicks and all that kind of stuff, and then they throw you out there to bounce off of each other like marshmallow men. Okay, so strategic thinking, tactical application, right? Not just the monkey moves. Okay, all right, that's it. I will talk to everybody again next week. Hopefully we'll be on time next week, and my projects and schedules don't do the same thing they always do, because now I have students coming in, and we got to do more stuff for the rest of our day. All right, that's it, guys. I'll talk to you next time. Hopefully you can make it for Friday's virtual. There's the URL, right? Jump on. Again, I don't do all these extra free classes anymore. This is the biggest you're going to get. But the Friday classes, if you do them piecemeal, it's under $5, right? For a 60 to 90 minute class. So take it or not. Okay, that's it. I'll talk to you next time.